thing on the agenda, we need a motion on the rule to allow electronically. Perfect, seconds it, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Megan,
Here.
Lightfoot,
Here.
Lightfoot,
Here.
Sheridan.
Here.
Smithers,
Here.
Nisha,
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Andrews,
Here.
Hay,
Here.
Haggard,
Here.
Yapko. Here. Burke,
Here.
Marquette.
Here.
Kelly. Here. Kern. Here.
This time I'd like to have the Vice Chairman, Nisha, lead us. Pledge.
Mr. Chairman. Our heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, this evening we thank you for the opportunity to gather here as grateful citizens of this great and wonderful nation. Yesterday marked the 21st anniversary of a series of 4 deliberate and cowardly terrorist acts against the United States in the morning of Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. Terrorist attacks changed our way of life instantly, forever. At this time, let us give homage to the 2,996 people who perished that day. Father, we shall not forget the sacrifices of those who have gone before us, but we ask that you grant us the strength and the courage to strive for compassion rather than hate. We ask that you grant this body the wisdom to make the best decisions during our deliberations and the courage to stand behind them. Give us the strength to put aside our differences for the greater good. For all these things, we ask your blessing for your Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ. In his name, all things are blessed. Amen. And at this point, before we do the pledge, I'd like to ask for silence. So, all those who died.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to approve the agenda. Kern makes a motion. Second. Perkins. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Other motion needed for approval of minutes for August 1st and August 15th. And that reminds me, I'm supposed to remind you, Mike Sporwood, like I was supposed to have just done, but haven't. And speak clearly with picture your buttons, push the buttons. So we have a motion to the minutes, so that Ms. Kern and Perkins, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now we have accreditation for St. Louis County Sheriff's Civil Division with Peter Kehoe, Executive Director, New York State Sheriff's Association. Sarah?
Thank you. So thanks to the board for giving us this opportunity to celebrate our accreditation of Civil Division. Just a little background on the civil, if you don't know. One of the sheriff's state mandated duties. Its primary function is to be a neutral party that oversees the civil enforcement process in accordance with New York State laws, which the sheriff creates policy. This office administrates various enforcement instruments, such as income executions to satisfy money judgments, or warrants, eviction after summary proceedings. In addition, this office serves a large value in the civil process for any requested parties, including courts, attorneys, private individuals. Historically, this office handles over $2 million a year, a portion of which offsets our operational costs. We've seen an unprecedented number of evictions this year. We saw to the end of the eviction moratorium in January. There's also a change in interest rate on consumer debt, 9% to 2%, required a substantial number of man hours to make appropriate changes to income executions enforced by our civil office. Over 800 executions in our office this year. So why the accreditation? Purpose of civil accreditation is to enhance the services provided by the civil division of the sheriff's office and to improve the public perception of the office of the sheriff in New York State. Civil Division Accreditation Manual details 121 standards that a county must meet or exceed in order to earn accreditation. Standards cover all aspects of civil division operation, including personal recruitment, aspects of civil division operation, training discipline, performance and evaluation, uniform standards and procedure, divisional organization, employee performance recognition, mission statements. All very, very important to the civil division. In summary, accreditation means that our sheriff's office has adopted and adhered to best practices described by the State Law Enforcement Agency Accreditation Council. Very, very important for our office. I want to thank the staff of the civil division. They did exceptional work getting this accreditation. A lot of months, not just days, months, hard work getting this done. You should be very proud of this achievement. I'll start by recognizing the civil division, our chief deputy, Leighton Biatra, civil chief enforcement officer, Michael McHugh, our senior account clerk, Nicole Bushy, account clerk, Taylor McGill, Deputy Christina Barton, and not present, he was busy tonight, was Deputy Shane Moore. All should get a round of applause for what they've done. At this time, I'd like to introduce Peter Kehoe. He is executive director of the Sheriff's Association, or State Sheriff's Association. A little background on what they do for the sheriffs. We couldn't survive without the Sheriff's Association. Since COVID hit, since police reform hit, since all these mandates, all the bills of New York State, we rely on our Sheriff's Association to really give us all the guidance from these bills. They work hard for us in Albany. They're invaluable. When this COVID hit and our police reform hit, we started doing weekly meetings. Peter will tell you, and all the sheriffs of the state, most of them get on almost every single week. We talk about all the issues that are involving the sheriffs of the state, but we couldn't ask for better guidance and a better executive director than Peter.
Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate that. On behalf of your staff in Albany, and I want to thank you, Chairman Sheridan, for this opportunity. Members of the board and guests, it's my pleasure to be here tonight on behalf of all the sheriffs of New York State to recognize and honor Sheriff for good work and men office on the occasion of the Sheriff's Civil Office. Only 29 of the state's 62 counties have been able to achieve in the civil office. So obviously, this is an easy accomplishment. This comes on top of the accreditation of your law enforcement division, which your sheriff's office earned and retained the New York State Law Enforcement Council. These two major achievements are great testimonies to Sheriff Bigelow and the entire staff, showing their dedication to pursuing excellence in the profession. You have an outstanding sheriff and sheriff's office. They're both well respected, both as you know, but also in respected state. The citizens of St. Lawrence County and the school of legislators should be very proud of the sheriff's office. So the sheriff has indicated the civil office is the enforcement arm of our civil courts. Without deputy sheriffs to serve and enforce judgments and orders of courts, those judgments and orders would be just mere pieces of paper. So today we particularly honor the employees of the civil office, who are, to my mind, the unsung heroes of the sheriff's office. Everyone knows the dangers and the difficulties our local deputies face every day. Not everyone knows that I work with civil deputies can be just as dangerous and just as stressful as that criminal enforcement. It's too often angry litigants take out the frustration in the civil courts and the deputy enforcing the orders of the court. Without the dedication and good work of our civil deputies, our courts of civil justice cannot function. And that is why we see lots of excellence in sheriff civil officers who are accreditation. Now, it's a civil office accreditation specifically is not something that we're just really asking. Sheriff has indicated that the truth requires that the civil office needs a very stringent set of standards, best practices developed by the experts in the field of civil process. These standards currently have 120 individual components as the sheriff. Gain accreditation of sheriff civil office must put itself to scrutiny by an outside board of assessors, which reviews the agency's operations. I'm happy to report that assessors review the operations of the civil office report, meaning that they meet in most cases exceed. Well, congratulations are in order to share report and then women of the civil division. All these employees. I want to say congratulations to also in order to citizens. Without your moral support and answers, this achievement and all of the outstanding service provided by your sheriff's office to all the citizens of all the areas of sheriff's responsibility. Accreditation does not just happen, it takes a lot of hard work by a lot of sheriff and staff. Sheriff efforts too, and I know as the sheriff said, it's a months-long process to secure accreditation. There's one person I want to recognize for all the extra effort and time that we put into the administrative and operational details. Needs to demonstrate and show that the sheriff's office is serving up. So this time I'd like to recognize Chief Deputy Delia Troll.
Thank you.
Again, Chairman Sherman, I want to thank you for this opportunity to publicly acknowledge all the good work that's being done by the sheriff's office in St. Lawrence County. Congratulations again to all of you as partners in this. This time I'll ask Sheriff Bickle to accept this back.
Next on the agenda, a call on legislator Akers. The resolutions, Rick.
I do, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is my great honor to present this resolution. It's a resolution proclaiming September 18th through the 24th of 2022 as Sheriff's Week in St. Lawrence County.
Okay, second by Mr. Lightfoot, Mr. Reagan, and Mr. Forsythe, Mr. Denison, Perkins, Mr. Kern, Mr. O'Malley, Mr. Tony Arquith, Mr. Yako, Mr. Haggard, Dan Fay. Is there anyone I missed? Mr. Burke, that's not, and Mr. Smithers. Yes, everybody. Anyway, so the second by all of us, any discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Reagan.
Well, I don't know why the sheriff only gets a week, but I know that Sheriff Bigworth will take what he can. We've come a long way since I got on the board in 2011 when we were in fiscal dire straits and road patrol was on the block. And the previous sheriff, Sheriff Wells, they fought hard. We fought hard here too. They live in our neighborhoods. They referee our games. They go to our churches. Kids go to our schools. They're a big part of our community. To serve, to protect against predators, the civil part, issuing the orders that the judges have. Those aren't fun jobs. Hand that piece of paper out. And I want to thank the sheriff, the staff, the Sheriff O'Brien as well.
Have a discussion. On the discussion, because we're all in favor, we all second it. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next, we have a presentation by Nancy Faber, County Historian. Nice.
You mean my big mouth won't carry. So many of you know that 1802 is when the county was formed, so we're celebrating the 220th. So what Sandy and her staff found was the 1802 original document, oath of office, for the first sheriff, with Elijah Tibbetts. And where and Lance and Jim know that I would be very remiss if I didn't say where he was from. Where's he from? From Lisbon. But anyway, I wear two hats. So what I thought I would do is just real quickly read from Huck's History of St. Lawrence County. And it says, Sheriff, under the first Constitution, the sheriffs were appointed annually by the Council of Appointment. And no person could serve more than 4 successive years. Under the second Constitution, they were elected for terms of 3 years and were ineligible for the next succeeding term. And under the Dutch, which New York, was first New Holland, the sheriff was termed school fiscal. I can't figure out why, but that's what it tells me. So, Sandy.
Preston Honor of the Board of Legislators proclaiming the week of September 18th, 2022, Sheriff's Week, St. Lawrence County. County historian Nancy Faber and I would like to present you with a printed copy of the oath of office of Sheriff of St. Lawrence County signed in 18.
Okay, that brings us to a brief recess for a reception. Now going to the reception. Next on the agenda is communications.
Email was received about here, and there are no medical prescriptions for heart condition area, something needs to be done. An email was received from Gerald Nathan, that saying child cancer is preventable, claims that infrasound infections cause cancer. Email was received from Reverend Dave Whitebard, retired that the one thing that was the greatness of America is the principle of church and state separation. Great parts to the founders. He said, looking at the national theme, that freedom is under attack today, trust that the board of legislators go on record supporting religious freedom, especially in regards to targeted reduction.
Next, we have citizen participation. Any citizen who would like to address the board is asked to start. Your Madeline Pennington, Perry.
Good evening. I'm Madeline Pennington, a member of the Manawatu chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. I'd like to request the Board of Legislators pass the resolution claiming the week September 17th, 2022. There are two documents of paramount importance in American history: Declaration of Independence, supports our national identity, the United States Constitution to set forth the framework for the federal government that functions to this day. While Independence Day is a well-recognized and beloved national holiday, fewer people know about the Constitution, annual commemoration of a living document that upholds and protects the freedoms central to our American way of life. September 17th, 2022 marks the 235th anniversary of the adoption of the Constitution of the United States of America. It is important for all Americans to recognize this magnificent document, which will reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution. And in 1787, by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberty. We urge all citizens to study the Constitution and reflect on the privilege of being an American with all rights and responsibilities which that privilege involves. Preamble of the Constitution was written by Governor Morris, landowner, statesman, and for whom the towns of Governor and Morristown in St. Lawrence County are named. I want to thank you for passing this resolution in past years and for taking the time for your busy schedules to consider this resolution, celebrate America's important document again this year.
Thank you. Anyone else on the phone? Oh. Real quick. Real quick. I don't want. Come on up. State your name.
My name is David Smith. I'm here. Still have concerns or, well, I'm not gonna say that. One of my associates emailed me this paper. I'd like to read it real quick. Just let me know when I get close. Integrity. What does integrity mean? You are honest, speak the truth. You present yourself genuinely and sincerely. Integrity is doing the right thing when nobody is watching. People with integrity practice what they preach and maintain a consistent pattern of behavior aligned with their values. All right, I only got 5 minutes, so I'm just gonna leave it here if you guys wanna read it. It was set, it was on the web. Quotes on integrity. Oh, no, right here. Individuals with this strength might be described as honest, authentic, genuine, trustworthy, sincere, real. Okay. It is important to tell the truth. Honesty is the best policy. Okay? Now, quotes on integrity from 4 fairly famous people. You're looking for 3 things generally in a person: intelligence, energy, and integrity. And if they don't have the last one, don't even bother with the first 2. Warren Buffett. Greatness of a man is not in how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him positively. Bob Marley. To believe in something and not live it is dishonest. Mahatma Gandhi. Whoever is careless about the truth in small matters cannot be trusted with important matters. Albert Einstein. So good. My attorney, to get back to the CPS, spoke with Hancock and Estabrook's attorney, John Murray Jr. Thursday afternoon. Conversation ended with him saying that he would make a report. Didn't say with who. Okay. My attorney had had many questions for him. One of them was, why was your firm hired by the county to investigate another county agency? Isn't that the very definition of conflict of interest? And his response was, sir, I have no response to that question. So my question is, did you guys get that report? Because he was also, did not have copies of any public record documents that would corroborate some of the complaints against CPS.
It's not a question.
I know, yeah,
That's what-
well, I'm gonna, but as a grandfather and grandfather, the safety and welfare of children, very dear to my heart. When the system comes after my family, I will do anything and everything with the pen that I need to do. That's it.
Going with presentation of resolutions, Mr. Kern? No, excuse me, what would you like?
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution proclaiming the week of September 17th through the 23rd, 2022 as Constitution Week and move for its adoption.
Second by Mr. Forsythe, Mr. Akers, Mr. Perkins, and Ms. Kern, Smithers, and Mr. Tony Arthur. And is there any discussion? Yes, Mr. Akers.
We could have Mr. Mutton give us an hour-long lecture on the value of the Constitution, but I will interject here, keep my remarks. It is a beautiful document.
I'd be more than happy
You fill in the blanks, mine would be just a general. Thank you. It's a beautiful document. It's worked for over 235 years, providing a system of checks and balances, 3 branches of government, the executive, the judicial, the legislature, and also the electoral college, which provides for rural states to have a voice, and also, and then urban states as well. And then providing us with a House with a 2-year term, so that the House can actually respond to immediate needs, maybe popular issues at the time, and actually giving the responsibility to the House for any spending acts. That seems to have been a thing in the past, and the House needs to reassert its control over the spending issues. Then the Senate to for the 6-year term to provide a little bit of stability to ride out the impulsiveness. But it's a great document. It's stood the test of time. America is much greater. It's a symbol to the rest of the world.
Any further discussion? Just further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Ms. Kern,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a resolution accepting a Howard G. Buffett Foundation grant for a New York State labor trafficking program and modifying the 2022 budget. Sheriff's Office.
second by Mr. Ganesha. Any discussion? See any discussion? We have a roll call vote.
Reagan,
Aye.
Forsythe,
Yeah.
Buck,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Nisha.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Akers.
Aye.
Hey,
Yes.
Haggard,
Yes.
Yaco. Yes. Burke,
Yes.
Barclay,
Yes.
Stelling.
Yes.
Kern. Aye. 15 yes.
Motion carried. Ms. Kern,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with the New York State Defenders Association for the Public Defender Case Management System. I move this resolution.
seconded by Mr. Perkins. Any discussion? See no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Ms. Kern,
I have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign contracts with municipalities to provide dispatching services known as the Secondary Public Safety Access Service for Emergency Services Agency, St. Lawrence County, and I move this resolution.
seconded by Mr. Ganesha. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Delightful.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a memorandum of understanding with Community Health Center of the North Country Incorporated for the provision of the Consumer Directed Personal Assistance Program in the Department of Social Services, and move for its adoption.
Seconded by Ms. Kern. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Lakeland.
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution setting business hours for the St. Lawrence County Community Services Department Opioid Treatment Program Clinic. Move for its adoption.
Seconded by Mr. Bergen. Kern. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Lakeland.
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract for funding from OASIS Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment Block Grant, Comprehensive Integrated Outpatient Treatment Program funds, and modifying the 2022 budget for community services, and move for its adoption.
Seconded by Mr. Forsythe. And any discussion? No discussion. We have a roll call vote.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Akers.
Aye.
Hey,
Yes.
Haggard,
Yes.
Yaco. Yes. Burke. Barclay,
Yes.
Terminelli. Yes. Kern. Yes. Reagan,
Aye.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Carried. Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign two contracts with New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee to accept the 2022-2023 Traffic Safety Program and Child Passenger Safety Grants. Move for its adoption.
Seconded by
I'm aware.
Ms. Kern. And any discussion? No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign contracts with contractors, subcontractors, and consultants for the overdose data to action grant for the Public Health Department. Move for its adoption.
Seconded by Ms. Kern. Mr. Akers. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Knowledge Capital Alliance for VMSG Dashboard Performance Management System and move for its adoption.
Seconded by Ms. Kern. Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Likely.
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution calling on the New York State Climate Action Council to craft a final scoping document that reflects the differing climate zones and wealth in the state, and that no action be taken to reduce or ban any energy sources until reliable energy sources that have been proven safe and affordable are in place. Move for its adoption.
Seconded by Mr. Keithley, Ms. Kern, Akers, Reagan, Petty. Ms. Evan. Start with. Any discussion? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Reagan.
Mr. Chair, I think it's particularly important right now to stress to our state and federal government the need to allow our state citizens to continue using affordable energy sources. And I stress the word affordable because I think that, you know, there is a tendency on the part of some to want to ban various fuel sources that are commonly used by the people of the state of New York without regard to what it's going to mean to the regular homeowner in St. Lawrence County and across New York State. And in the rush that the Climate Action Council is making, I don't think that affordability is at the height of their considerations. And I think that, you know, most of the people of St. Lawrence County, especially as we enter the heating season, that's what they're concerned about is how am I going to heat my home? How am I going to afford to heat my home? And I think this resolution is aimed at making known to state government that this is an issue that's important to the everyday citizen.
Any other discussion? Mr. Akers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to be added as co-sponsor. I think what we're seeing here in this rush to be, you know, electric or alternative fuel things is this worry about climate change. Really what's happening is it's not climate change that we have to worry so much about, it's the climate change policies that are being hastily enacted. All across California, and here New York is following the lead. For closing down nuclear facilities. For in Europe, actually, they're opening up. Japan is restarting some of theirs. They're developing new ones across Europe. We're going to be going towards electrification, as you saw with the EMC in their report. They do support nuclear. It's kind of a half-hearted, half-warm gesture. They know that nuclear is part of the solution. And as we rush to judgment here, and that we are taking up all our tillable land here in the North Country and other places that are arable land that's being used to produce food, we're in real danger of actually running out of food. I'm not so sure that sunlight is very filling diet. We need to be very careful. We need to be proactive in actually making sure that these policies that we're enacting are affordable, not making cold and hungry, or because of a goal that is not yet attainable. We don't have the infrastructure to handle all this distributive energy.
Any other discussion? Close the discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Accurate. Carried. Mr. Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to introduce a resolution supporting the efforts of community services to end the wait list for clinic appointments and requiring same-day services be available for addiction or mental health services when a request is received.
Seconded by Mr. Forsyth. Any discussion? Mr. Smith.
I have some concerns with this resolution. In the last part, be it further resolved, the amendment that was made where it says the first available appointment possible makes more sense. In other parts of the resolution, it has conflicting statements. Calls for ending the wait list, as we've heard from our Director of Community Services. The wait list being ended, not having a wait list, it's going to be pretty difficult to do. He described it as a pretty heavy lift. May involve requiring additional personnel. I question whether every request for services demands immediate or same-day service, but to leave that to the discretion of somebody else that is able to make that determination. In this resolution, it also immediate action needs to be taken, same-day services required, and at the end it says first available appointment. So it's saying two different things. So to me, it's not making sense.
Any other discussion? Sure.
Barry brings up a good point. I wonder, do we know this would require additional resources? As it's now stated here, required.
Believe that Jay Ulrich was to look at the impact of that, and to discuss some challenges in the clerical area, situations where there's turnover. I do believe they had a system set up, Jay's on with us, whereby they could reallocate the calls to be made. But I do think they would look at that to see how that would play out in the future.
Mr. Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we've been clear about the intent of this resolution. The intent of this resolution is for our agency to work with the other 9 agencies in St. Lawrence County that provide similar services and same services to keep abreast of who has the availability of services. The goal of this resolution is not to create additional staff. It's not to create additional work. What its goal is for our agency to be a gatekeeper to help people who need services find the services that are available, so that we don't just leave people on a waiting list for weeks on end, instead of first saying, hey, there are other services available here in the county. Contact this agency that is taking new clients, is taking people who need this help. I don't feel that it's an unreasonable concept that we encourage our agency to be working with the other agencies that it oversees. We should not be in competition with the other agencies in the county. We should be working hand in hand with them to make sure that people who need psychiatric help or drug addiction help get the help as quickly as possible. So I would urge everyone on the board to support this resolution. I think we have discussed it at length over and over again to get across the purpose of this resolution. And, you know, that is the goal. That's what we ought to be encouraging our department head to do. And I urge everyone to vote for it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Perkins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Mr. Smithers that it is conflicting. If you look at the last whereas on the last sentence, it says that access to care is made available immediately to the individual requesting assistance. I'd like to have an amendment to change the word immediately to as soon as possible.
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
It's moved and is that second? Well, part of that, actually, second. Great. Any more discussion? So, all in favor of the amendment? Could I have the discussion on the amendment? Go ahead, Mark.
I guess I would wonder, as amended, if that still doesn't place the burden on county. It would be interesting knowing what Jay's take on that would be as amended. I don't disagree with Jim's assessment that we need to do whatever we can to help people get the help they need. But it's a new job, a new task that we're giving to the county community services department to actually be the pivot point. I know we discussed it the last time. Kevin had suggested like a community bulletin board type of thing. That makes sense. I just don't know. I don't know the feasibility of adding that in. It still places the burden on us.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little hesitant with this tonight. I did get the feeling from Jay the last time we talked about this. Maybe I misinterpreted. But I did get the feeling that he was very acceptable about this. As far as the amendments concerned, which we're discussing now, I think that even if I was supportive of the resolution, that would take away some of the resolutions trying to implement. I can't support the amendment or the resolution tonight until I feel Jay has had weighted more heavily on.
Mr. Manelli?
I was just going to say, you know, when Mr. Reagan talked about the intention of the resolution, I think that through all of our discussion on this resolution, we've all made it very clear that we all want the same thing. It's not about that. It's just that the intention of one board of 15 people can change when we look at what it looks like in black and white once the resolution has been adopted. We have some pretty heavy language in there, like the word requiring, that we may not hold J2 to require them to find a same day appointment, but the next board they may. So sometimes, you know, intention can be lost when a board passes a resolution. I would find it more important. I mean, we brought this concern to Jay. He knows that it's a huge concern we have. I would much rather be proactive in encouraging him to come to us with a manageable plan to get our wait list down, a manageable plan to set up that community bulletin and get access to the people that need those services, rather than us maybe implement or put something on his plate that can't be achieved. And as I mentioned the last time we discussed this, getting them off of our wait list just means that they're off of ours. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not on somebody else's. So, you know, if the goal is net zero, it doesn't necessarily that the county as a whole is providing any better services or access to care.
Straight.
That's the problem. You just mentioned it. Our problem or somebody else's. It's everyone's problem. We know that, I forget the numbers, we have 11 units that do mental health, we have 5 that do addiction, I believe 2 that actually provide hospitalization. I think we're tripping over language here, and I think Mr. Smithers is right, and the same thing with the amendment. Requires the same day services, we know that's not always possible. Okay, so we can strike that from the resolution. Mr. Reagan's intent by bringing forth this resolution is we're tired of seeing the waiting list. So I'm not going to wait, I'm not willing to wait Mr. Ulrich to come up with a solution. The bottom, be it further resolved, provides for providing a community bulletin so that anyone can access it. It's up to those 11 entities and the other 5 entities that have services when they're available to be putting that on there. So we get it out to the public that they know that these services are available. They don't know who they are, these acronyms and where they're located. They don't know what's out there. They just know that they need help. And so I think by providing a community, a bulletin, that we direct Jay Ulrich to do so, puts the onus on those entities to actually provide for those services and like, hey, how come United Helpers is, they're able to do this? What you have right now is the different services are in competition with each other. They're robbing staff. So I think, we can't have people that come home, spend their money on drugs and the kids are going hungry. They want to quit. They go to the clinic. They got to wait 2 weeks. It's not going to happen. If somebody else offers that services so they can get you into transitional living, that's the attack. So I wish you would support legislator Perkins' thing is to remove that language. I forget what it was here now. And then maybe consider another amendment to remove the requirement for the same day services, because I do think it's almost impossible. If that's what you're tripping over, we can clean up that language. We can agree to clean up the language of requiring same day services. This bulletin will make community services job easier. Because right now somebody's answering the phone and telling the people, I'll set you up for an appointment, but we're 2 weeks or we're 3 weeks out. This way, somebody can answer the phone and I'd like to address you or send you to this community bulletin that's available. Here's the link. You have a smartphone, which most people do. Here's the link. You decide for yourself. Maybe if you're in Governor and you can't travel to the city, you find something closer. So please support Mr. Perkins's amendment. We can take that out. Then I would like to make an amendment after that about requiring same day services. Restricted that. Thank you.
Mr. Arkland?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have Jay Ward. You'd be willing to recognize, and my question to him would be that with this is existing staff and with no budgetary changes, would this be a doable plan for him? Is this something that he thinks that his department can, as written?
Okay, this question, legislator Arkland would like to answer. Can you hear me, Jay?
No, can you say that again, please? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Chair.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't speaking in loud enough, I guess. So you want Jay to answer that question, correct?
Wanted to know what the question.
You wanted to know what the question was? Do you want to repeat the question? Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your button. I think that's what stops it. Thank you. Jay, earlier in the conversation, and I'm not sure if you were aboard, one of the original questions was that would this resolution be possible without adding staff? So my question was, as the resolution reads, and we are talking and speaking into an amendment at this point with the language, but is this resolution doable with the existing staff that you have, or would you need additional staff or additional budgetary items to fulfill the obligations within this resolution?
I mean, I think when we have a full front end staff or customer support staff, it's certainly more doable. And then we have a program director as a backup that would be able to function as someone that could, try to help implement this resolution. It's really when, we have people on extended leave and on the front office. We have people that have a lot of tenure and have a lot of vacation time that are built up. So they're taking weeks at a time. That's when it becomes a struggle, for the department.
If I just.
So,
Question?
Thank you, just so that, for the record, I'm not suggesting that I would support, any monetary efforts that might be needed to fulfill this. I'm just, as the resolution reads, I just want to be clear that he's able to do this with the existing staff. What he's got it. I'm hopeful that they don't redirect staff to fulfill this obligation of the resolution, and that things aren't getting done with what they're ready to scope.
Just current.
So in a call where someone calls in and they said, I need to see somebody about anxiety. Well, tell me what's going on, okay? Are you homicidal, are you suicidal? No, okay. When did you want to be seen? Do you have anything next week? Okay. We don't have anything here next week, but I do see an appointment at versus, yes, I am suicidal. Okay, so that's gonna go the same place no matter who's at the front desk. That's gonna have somebody pick somebody up someplace and take them someplace for immediate evaluation. I honestly, as a clinician, do not see how it takes really even minutes more to say, I have an appointment here, or I have an appointment here. If you set the system up right, it's right there. Many times when people show up at the ER, we don't have a bed here. So we just go down and we look at the board and, oh, they have a bed in Rochester, and we send the patient to Rochester. It just matters where you tell the ambulance. And I would not want to keep a waiting list anywhere when we have the opportunity to see somebody get the help they need, because when people call in distress, they don't necessarily even tell you exactly what's going on with them. So to put somebody on a waiting list, because I think he said, well, if we don't have a waiting list, we don't have a business at some point. The county is the supplier of last resort for things like this. We're not a business per se, but we make sure there's mental health care in this community. This is why we have a local government unit director who looks around at everything that's going on for services and either says, yes, we need more services to come into the county, or no, we don't. Right now, we're at a staffing shortage. Jay would hire probably 3 more nurse practitioners or 3 more doctors if the bodies were there, but they're not. So the shared governance of what's going on in the community for services and what's available is really our best bet to keep people safe and to make sure that bad things don't happen. And I urge everyone to support this. You can work out how do you get the next person to answer the phone later, but I see the people who walk in distress, or I'm doing clinical, or that walk into the emergency room that I work in, and they aren't people that if you put them off for 2 weeks, you may never see again. And I don't want them to be hurt, and we all have families. We all have the opportunity to have somebody in our family that has these problems. Our job is to answer this call when it's there. We should pass this resolution and get it started.
Lightfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I look at this resolution and focusing in on the now therefore be it resolved. I think in a perfect world, this is a good resolution. We want to see the people that need immediate treatment get the treatment they need immediately. It's not a perfect world. It's not going to happen. If you look at the numbers provided by the other providers, you will see that every single one of them had lengthy wait lists, double-digit wait lists. And I think that if St. Lawrence County Community Service is going to continue to provide the service, that it's going to continue to have a wait list. But I think that there is, with respect to the now therefore be it resolved, that there is a an agreement that the first part of that is, and that first part of it says that the board supports the efforts of community services to end the wait list for clinical appointments. If this were my resolution, there'd be a period after that appointments, and I would eliminate and delete the rest of that resolution and require same-day services be available for addiction or mental health services when a request is received. And I would therefore make a motion to amend this resolution by removing that which I have just quoted up to the word "and."
Point of order.
Lightfoot, you have a resolution that we're discussing right now. It's an amendment, to the resolution. So I think your amendment would not be ordered this time.
Fine. All I would ask then is I'd be recognized to provide that after this one is dealt with.
Spur.
Just to follow up to what Rita said, you have to remember that answer the phones aren't clinicians for the most part. They are not trained to do any kind of triage. They may pick up on a trigger word like self-harm or something like that, but people that generally answer the phone and take the appointments, schedule the appointments, are clerical staff. It's not, these are not professionals who can decide who needs immediate help, who doesn't need it. So, and I know Joe's resolution isn't being discussed right now, but I would support what you just said.
Spur.
So whether the people answering the phone triage or not, kind of presumed when someone was calling in that there was some triage process, we should have one. But whether they're clinical or they can still look down and say the first available appointment across this grid is, and let's not forget that we have a 24-hour day, 7-day week, walk-in urgent care mental health facility, Park Street in Ogdensburg. You can always send somebody. We have Claxton, which has trained psychiatry people right in their ear to talk to people that we can send people to if we have any concern. Because we do have some kind of liability when people are calling and asking for help. And if we don't have legal liability, we should think that we have some sort of moral liability to the people that we've been elected to serve in this county.
Mr. Smith.
I think, listening to everybody, we're pretty much in agreement. We'd like care to take place as soon as possible. And so we want to do something. And with the amendments that have been suggested, I think we're pretty much all in agreement on that. So,
Must be. All the questions.
No.
Okay.
Second.
Question. Paul. Okay, on the amendment.
On the call of question. Point of order, we have to vote on the call of question. We have to vote.
Okay, that's right. All in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
Aye.
You opposed? Carried. Now on the amendment. All in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
Anyone opposed to that amendment? One person was Hackard and somebody else. And Ms. Bianca. Okay, two was against, so carried. Now, Mr. Light.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't go through my reasoning as I've already done so, but I would offer an amendment to this resolution in the now therefore be it resolved section that we retain the sentence that states that the Board of Legislators supports the efforts of community services to end the wait list for clinic appointments, period. And everything after that, with the exception of the very last "and," be deleted.
Second by Mr.
Mr. Chair, I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
And second also by the sponsor. So it's seconded twice. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So that's carried. So now, the original resolution as amended. All in favor of the original resolution as amended?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Ms. Haggard? And who else? One person? Okay, the second. Motion carries. Straight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a permanent easements with National Grid on the parcel and the adjoining property for construction. Utilities for the county highway facility in the town of Potsdam. Move this resolution.
Second by Mr. Smithers, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Straight.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with St. Lawrence Valley Education Television Council, Inc. for the purpose of maintaining an antenna on the tower in South Fulton. I move this resolution.
Second by Ms. Kern, Smithers, any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Straight.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with J.J. Keller and Associates, Inc. for entry-level driver training certification program and modifying the 2022 budget for the Department of Highways. I move this resolution.
Second by Mr. Smithers and Mr. Forsythe. Any discussion? No discussion, we have a roll call vote.
Aaron,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Nisha,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Akers.
Yes.
Tay,
Yes.
Haggard,
Yes.
Yaco. Yes. Burke.
Yes.
Arcot.
Yes.
Romanelli.
Yes.
Curran.
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot.
Yes.
Motion carries. Mr. Akers.
Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign contracts for the construction of a recycling station transfer facility at the Ogdensburg Transfer Station and modifying the 2022 budget for solid waste. I move this resolution.
Second by Mr. Kern, Mr. Smithers. Any discussion? No discussion, we have a roll call again.
Smithers,
Yes.
Nisha,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Akers.
Aye.
Tay,
Yes.
Haggard,
Yes.
Yaco. Yes. Burke,
Yes.
Arcot.
Yes.
Romanelli. Yes. Curran. Aye. Reagan,
Aye.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes. Carried. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Department of Judas DPC for bidding, construction, and inspection services for the Ogdensburg Transfer Station Improvement Project and modifying the 2022 budget for solid waste. I move this resolution.
Second by Mr. Kern, Mr. Smithers, any discussion? No discussion, roll call vote. please.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Akers.
Aye.
Tay,
Yes.
Haggard,
Yes.
Yaco. Yes. Burke,
Yes.
Arcot,
Yes.
Romanelli.
Yes.
Curran. Aye. Reagan,
Aye.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers.
Yes.
Carried. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Department of Judas DPC for engineering services for Part 360 permit renewal for the Messina Transfer Station and modifying the 2022 budget for solid waste and move the resolution.
Seconded by Smithers and Mr. Kern. Any discussion? Roll call.
Perkins.
Yes.
Akers.
Yes.
Tay,
Yes.
Haggard,
Yes.
Yaco. Yes. Burke,
Yes.
Arcot.
Yes.
Romanelli.
Yes.
Curran. Aye. Reagan.
Aye.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers.
Yes.
Yes.
Carries. Right?
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution modifying the 2022 budget for the sheriff office for overtime expenses. I move the resolution.
Seconded by Mr. Kern, Mr. Burke. Any discussion? No discussion, give a roll call.
Chris,
Yes.
Hey,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes.
Capco.
Yes.
Burke. Hardaway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Tanisha,
Yes. Yes.
Carries. Mr. Akers,
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution modifying the 2022 budget for the opioid treatment program for community services. I move this resolution.
seconded by Mr. Kern. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Hey,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes.
Capco. Yes. Burke,
Yes.
Hardaway,
Yes.
Nelly. Yes. Kern,
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Tanisha,
Yes. Yes.
Akers.
Yes.
Carries. Strike.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract appropriating American Rescue Plan Act funds for the purpose of removal of the ash trees in the Soil and Water Conservation District and modifying the 2022 budget for the county administrator's office. I move this resolution.
Second by Mr. Burke, Mr. Kern, and, any discussion? No discussion, roll call, Billy.
Yes.
Capco. Yes. Burke.
Yes.
Hardaway.
Yes.
Nelly.
Yes.
Kern,
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Tanisha.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey,
Yes.
Carries. Strike.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution modifying the 2022 budget for the county administrator's office to complete additional work of hazard tree removal associated with the ash tree removal project. I move this resolution.
Second by Mr. Smithers and Ms. Kern, any discussion? Yes, Mr. Akers.
This is, I hope everyone supports this. These professional tree groups that'll be bidding on these projects when they're going along our county highways and taking ash trees. They'll be taking that leaning oak tree or maple tree that's about ready to fall down. This way professionals be taking this down rather than sending out our highway crews who can do the job. If they aren't professionals, then this will let them work on the bridges and the roads. It's a great opportunity. I hope you provide the funding.
Discussion, Mr. Akers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm hoping that the folks over at Highway support this, if it's not a violation of the collective bargaining agreement in any way by having contractors do some of our traditional work. I think it's a great idea as long as the union is supportive of this work. We know that.
I'm not aware of it. Do you,
find out.
thank you. Foresight.
Just a logistics question. Who determines which leaning tree? Who's the final decision on that?
Our county forester will be marking all the trees. They'll mark the trees with one color for the emerald ash borer hazard, and then the hazard trees associated with roadways.
Further discussion? Question, Mr. Akers.
Just to follow up, this is a safety issue. It's not really, denying work for our county employees. There's plenty of work to go around. We have more than enough to do. Just asking, this is about a safety issue. We have people that do this every day for a living, have the trucks, will be in the buckets, have the protection for power lines and whatnot. Actually, I don't believe there'll be any power lines on these particular highways. But they have the expertise. These ash trees are very difficult to take down. They implode within. We take it from the top down. The same with our oak and maple trees and box alders, whatever, that are leading to the right of way, the county's highways, safety of the people. It's a safety, it's safer for our people, it's safer for everyone.
Sarah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Mr. Akers. This is a safety thing, but I think Mr. Arquette has a very important point. This is something that we should have an answer. $200,000 to be spent on something that is cutting into collective bargaining.
Mr. Akers. Excuse me, Mr. Rockwood.
That's fine.
We'll start with Ed.
Again, just for the record, my comments were meant to be argumentative, but anyway, this, I don't disagree with Mr. Abrams' comments on the safety aspects of it, but that has nothing to do with the position that the union may or may not take on work that would traditionally be done by the representative. That's the right. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Capra. Yes. Bird.
Yes.
Barclay.
No.
Kelly. No. Kern. Yeah. Reagan.
Yes.
Forsythe.
Yes.
Lightfoot.
Yes.
Sheridan.
Yes.
There's.
Yes.
Hurricane.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Hey.
Yes.
Packer.
No.
Yes.
Resolution carries. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution modifying the 2022 budget for the County Administrator's Office for advertising expenses. Move this resolution.
Seconded by Ms. Kern. And Mr. Reagan. Any discussion? No discussion, we have a roll call.
Barclay.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Reagan.
Yes.
Forsythe.
Yeah.
Lightfoot.
Yes.
Sheridan.
Yes.
There's.
Yes.
Nisha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Peters.
Yes.
Hey.
Yes.
Packer.
Yes.
Capra. Yep.
Motion for resolution carries. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution for setting a date for a public hearing on proposed local law C for the year 2022. Authorizing the use of video or similar service for remote attendance of meetings of public bodies acting in the name of St. Lawrence County pursuant to Chapter 1 of the laws.
Made by Mr. Smithers. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the creation of the sheriff marked vehicle reserve for the purpose of ensuring that St. Lawrence County patrol vehicles are placed on a schedule that ensures public officer safety. I move this resolution.
By Mr. Lightfoot. Forsythe. And any discussion? Or, excuse me, Mr. Akers.
So, Mr. Chairman, I applaud the county administrator and the sheriff for putting this idea together. It makes very good sense. We have 10 or 11 patrol cars. Really right now, any more will be transition of bringing the new ones. As I mentioned earlier, in committees, Mather Waterton has the same number of buses, and we bond for two buses every year. So we have a constant turnover, so we don't get hit with, okay, this year you get by 5. So it's an orderly progression, and makes fiscal sense that we keep investing in our cars, and keeping the sheriff with things that will go down the road.
Carter.
I just like to say I agree with Mr. Akers. So you're very good.
Mr. Rockwell.
I forgot. Thank
The
you.
real Mr. Rockwood, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say this, it's not your fault for getting us mixed up. We're generally saying just about the same thing every time, so it's not your fault.
Thanks, I love it when I don't get to play.
Yeah.
All right. Where was I? Oh, yeah. How about all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mr. Akers.
I believe the
Well, that's,
next
that's,
resolution is.
that's gonna be Mr. Fay. Go ahead, Mr. Fay.
And authorization, Mr. Chair, the resolution for the authorization of filling vacancies.
And seconded by Mr. Burke. Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, the next one. By me, you wanna offer that, Larry?
Yes, Chairman, I offer a resolution accepting the recommendations of the county administrator during the 2022 annual vacancy review analysis, including rescinding resolution number 291-2008 and amending resolution number 4-20.
Second. Sure, I will second it. And any discussion? Go ahead, discussion.
Thank you, Ruth, I'd like to thank you for bringing this forward. We talked about it 2 weeks ago, and I know you've got a lot of work, but I still have more questions than I have answers. And I wouldn't be able to vote on all these at the same time, actually, I'd really rather see it broken out myself. I'd like to make a motion to table it, maybe till like November finance or something, give us time to get some numbers and see that. And maybe break it out a little bit or whatever the will of the board is. For me, I just.
Ms. Kern,
Second the table.
no discussion. Motion been made, seconded on the table.
Yeah.
Any discussion on the table?
No discussion.
All in favor of the table?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Second, Mr. Burke. Table carries. Ms. Kern.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution in opposition to the recent enacted Concealed Carry Improvement Act and authorizing the county attorney to explore options for legal challenges.
Second by Mr. Forsythe and Mr. Snyder
Yeah, as a co-sponsor.
and Mr. Okay, co-sponsors noted, Bartlett, Mr. Smithers, Mason, and Mr. Reagan. Akers. And Ms. Burke. And Ms. Karen. Well, I'll leave sponsor it, so you must just want to talk about it. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So when we take office, we make an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of New York. And in June 23rd, 2022, the Supreme Court issued a decision striking down the New York State's proper cause and all of the little things that they had written that infringed on your ability to carry a gun concealed. They spoke about the fact that what we had was unconstitutional. So quickly thereafter, the governor called emergency session to write something that was actually more restrictive and went further into our constitutional rights than the previous situation was. So I'm glad that they brought the Constitutional Week, September 17th through the 23rd. I'm hoping more people will read the Constitution and understand their constitutional rights. I'm hoping people will support this resolution. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Haggard.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I took that oath, Ms. Curran. It's referring to, and I do support every amendment to the Constitution. Every amendment, to my knowledge, is not without some restriction. I won't be supporting this tonight for a number of reasons. One of them being that it has in the language of the further resolved in the second one. It gave me the impression that we were doing something that we have said as a body we don't want to do. When we spoke of giving Ruth the ability to do certain things beyond the board's approval, the the third to the last or the second, be it further resolved, seems to suggest that we're giving the county attorney carte blanche to decide the cases that will be filed. And I'm hoping on top of that, given the workload and the amount of responsibility our county attorney has, that he has time to do everything that's delineated and we're asking in this resolution. Thank you.
Mr. Burke.
I support the essence of the resolution, but I can't help but wonder if there isn't statements between what Margaret just said, but third from the last, be it further resolved, and the fourth from the last, be it further resolved. In one, we're asking the county attorney to assess the situation, make recommendations. And then the next one seems like bypassing the step, basically saying the county attorney do what you think is necessary. Again, just to make it clear, I support resolution, but I think the wording just for me is confusing. That's contradictory. I'd be interested in if your permission, Steve, could comment on that.
Go ahead.
Would this be the appropriate time for me to speak for an hour on the Constitution?
Surely. Ladies young.
I actually read these provisions in concert. As I read them in concert, it would appear that first now therefore declares the unconstitutionality of the Concealed Carry Improvement Act, making that declaration consistent with the Bruin decision. The second allows the county attorney to review any legal challenges that have been filed, or in fact, and several legal challenges that have been filed since the first week in July, since the emergency session occurred. One of them fairly prominently has been recently decided to go into certain decision versus Bruin, where Judge Sutterby indicated that while the plaintiffs in the GOA decision or gun owners American decision lacks appropriate standing, that the vast majority of the Concealed Carry Improvement Act was itself unconstitutional, a violation of the major tenets of the Bruin decision, and indicated that GOA was permitted to bring back with an appropriate plaintiff a challenge in a certain subject matter jurisdiction as well as in personam jurisdiction to reclaim their request for the preliminary injunction. That dismissal was without prejudice. The next major filing actually occurred on September 1st, and I serve that has now filed a new suit alleging an unconstitutional action in the Concealed Carry Improvement Act. The third, be it further resolved as I read that, indicates that the county attorney may determine that joining a suit or commencing a suit in the name of St. Lawrence County is appropriate. It indicates that I'm authorized to do so if I believe that I can, in fact, effectuate that in a manner that is consistent with the first, second, fourth, and 14th. The fourth resolution authorizes the county attorney to determine whether or not additional services or additional support may be necessary to secure that support. We're contemplating the addition of successive counties or 57 counties outside of New York City, the vast majority of which actually support a challenge directly to the Concealed Carry Improvement Act, at least as it has anecdotally been relayed to me by representatives around the state. The final, be it further resolved, would recommend the forwarding of this resolution to all of the representatives for this area. Quite frankly, I will tell you that if the board were to pass this resolution, my intention would be to come back to the recommendation before I would take any action. I believe a further resolution would at least be recommended from my perspective, even though I can read this resolution as granting me more authority. I don't want to step in that direction, but I want the board to be comfortable with the direction that I recommend.
Burke.
That's comforting, is that begs the question, why would it be ended after the be it further resolved, the legislator directs the county to review the legal challenges filed against Cedar Carry and make recommendations to legislators as to how you may join legal process in opposition to the act. That's essentially what you said. And again, it doesn't, and again, I just think that next be it further resolved. If we're empowering you, Steve, to make all of the decisions, then we don't need you to bring it back to the board legislature. Contradictory in my mind. And I would be very comfortable if it ended at the end of the fourth from the last, and then send it on. I just think that the way it's written.
Mr. Chairman, just go ahead and respond. Mr. Burke, I tend to agree with you that the third, be it further resolved, could actually be struck in its entirety. And then just keep the first now therefore be it resolved, the be it further resolved second, fourth be it further resolved, and the fifth be it further resolved. You know, where it is. According to first, second, fourth, and fifth. Not my decision to make, but I. Second.
If I may ask Mr. Buckner.
Yes.
Thank you. Are you talking about the, I'm a little confused. It's at the top of the page, on the page 41.
If you're looking at page 41, the first paragraph on page 41, I'm communicating to you that even if I were to determine that a lawsuit is appropriate, I still believe that I will come back with additional resolution for the board's consideration and discuss it. Separate and distinct. I would want you all to be fully on board with the direction.
Mr. Akers.
So I think in paragraph that you're referencing, did not Judge Sotheby reference first, second, fourth, and the 14th Amendment in his decision? Mr. Button.
Thank you. He did. In fact, he found the Concealed Carry Improvement Act to be a violation of the first, second, fourth, and 14th Amendment.
So I have full confidence that the board decided to take action on this, that Mr. Button would come back to the board and seek approval, as he has in the past many times. We'll say that Mr. Button was pivotal in actually, in the case of New York Rifle and Pistol versus New York City in our amicus curiae with the state of Louisiana, to the point where one of the justices referenced St. Louis County, reference to our proper cause law that we actually passed here, I believe in 2015 or 16. So I'm full bore ahead with this resolution. New York has been on a tear since the SAFE Act with knee-jerk reactions to our lawful constitutional rights to protect ourselves. This idea that you have guns in the Adirondack Park, that really hasn't been true. That's not a clear issue. We don't know if we have Parish Schultz having a gun show. I think West Hudson thinking about a gun show. They don't know if they're going to be in violation of the law. I don't know if the sheriff can expound on this. I don't think it's been very clear. What is clear was there was a knee-jerk reaction by the state of New York in an emergency session in reaction to a ruling made by the Supreme Court. And that the effect of this is that the citizens of St. Lawrence County in New York State have their constitutional rights inhibited. The very fact, I'm not on social media, but the very fact that the last 3 years of anybody's social media posts have to be submitted or examined is a violation of the free speech. I'm full on board to support this resolution 100%. I hope everyone else does as well.
Mr. Vanilla.
I don't want to speak for Mrs. Haggard, but I believe the intention of removing that one paragraph, that one be it further resolved. I too agree that Mr. Button will come back to us always and be transparent with us always. But the board that sits here today and that county attorney that sits there today may not be the board or the county attorney that sits there tomorrow. And again, once we approve this resolution, it's open for interpretation for the next county attorney to do carte blanche with it. We meet on a weekly basis, which provides plenty of opportunity for the county attorney to come back and just provide us with any updates on any litigation that may be relevant at the moment. I would make an amendment. I would like to make an amendment to remove that, I guess it's the second be it further resolved from the resolution.
For a second. Second by Mr. Parker. All in favor?
Discussion.
Have the discussion on this. Discussion on this. Go ahead, Mr.
So as I referenced in my earlier comments, the be it further resolved that we're looking at is, and I'll read it to make sure what's clear, that should the county attorney determine that joining a suit or commencing a suit in the name of St. Lawrence County is appropriate, the county attorney may do so in the name of St. Lawrence County to assert the first, second, the fourth, 14th. Those are all very valuable constitutional rights. I'm not willing to give them up. They are the same constitutional rights that Judge Suddaby referenced in his kind of non-decision because the plaintiff didn't have standing. And so I would not like to see that removed, and I would vote against that amendment.
Mr. Ronelli.
The removal has nothing to do with the amendment that it's discussing. It's the fact that I would hate to find out after the fact that we're involved in a lawsuit because we provided the county attorney, not Steve Button, but the county attorney in general, with the open ability to engage us in a lawsuit without us being privy to that. We may find it in the papers before we even know about it.
Mr. Lightfoot.
I think with some additional tinkering, which I will provide once this amendment is taken care of, will solve the problem.
Any other discussion? On the amendment? All in favor? Count 1, 2, 3, hands up, 4, 5. The amendment fails. Okay. Sure.
I would propose amending the resolution in that third be it resolved by leaving everything in there that is in there and adding after citizens upon approval of the Board of Legislators. Period.
Second by Mr. Bakers. Any discussion? All in favor? of that amendment?
All right.
Aye. Anyone opposed? So that amendment's carried. Now.
Are we still discussing?
We're on the record. One more time.
Could I be recognized?
Yes, you can.
Thank you, sir. In my previous comments, I mentioned something about, the amount of time we're asking to put into this, and I represent a district who supports me, is not supporting these types of things, but seem to have been, do they support the hours that our attorney is going to be taken away from DSS or other parts of the attorney's business in the county to do this? I'd like to know approximately how many hours would be needed to be spent on this. And if it would be Mr. Button himself or someone who works in his office. I'd just like to get an idea of how much money we're spending to do this. Thank you.
Like to answer that.
Again. I think-
have to be honest, I don't know how much time would be my time. I can say with respect to NYSERPA versus New York City, first case in reference by Mr. Akers, I actually put that time in on my time off. I know since taking over DS as legal, I don't really have much time off. All have had an experience with me where you text me at all hours of the night or morning, or day, and I'm there to respond, whether it be Saturday or Sunday. But I did not bill any time, I did not pay any time for payment. I did my truck versus New York City, that included my time in Washington DC, that included my time in New Orleans, when I was general. Yeah. My wife happened to take me for my 40th birthday down there in New Orleans, and it was a nice time to actually meet with the folks at the Solicitor General's office. With respect to NYSERPA versus Bruin, which was the case that was decided in June, I ended up putting in roughly, recollection was about 10 hours, but once again, the vast majority of that was spent in evenings or spent on weekends when I could actually put some time thinking into it. I'll be honest with you, my normal days are so hectic and things are flying so quickly that I can't sit and write the way I want to write without distraction. And so I intentionally write in the evenings or write on the weekends when I can have a little more quiet. I can be off in a place that I'm not going to have things blowing up on. With this, it depends on what role we took. If we took the most proactive role, became an active litigant in the suit, could be a significant amount of time. I don't want to leave you with the impression this is going to be 5 hours or 10 hours. It would be a lot of time. If we took an amicus route and were supportive of someone else's endeavor, it could be as little as 5 to 7 hours in doing up our preliminary litigation state. Once again, fairly limited amount of time to involve. That was essentially on our NYSERPA versus Bruin. That was essentially where we were at. We were supporting the efforts of the states that were filing the amicus through our connections with them on NYSERPA versus New York City. With NYSERPA versus New York City, I actually acted as the New York State legal advisor to the state of Louisiana State of Drafting. So I had a lot more time outside that I had to put towards that. But I'm trying to give you a sense that there's really a range here depending on what type of action we need.
Please.
One follow-up.
Thank you. I certainly would not want any of our employees to find time for the same. Thank you, Mr. Buckler.
Of course, sir.
Well, I represent a district that does care about this, but that and is supportive of this resolution. Many others in this room do. My suggestion to Mr. Button, who I have total faith in regarding these issues, is hunting season soon upon us. Take a little notebook to your hunting stand. And an hour here and an hour there, and you may. I'll support your efforts wholeheartedly, and thank you for any efforts.
Mr. Akers?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Legislator Curran for bringing forth this resolution. It's on a lot of my constituents' minds. And the question I have for Mrs. Haggard, anyone else, is how much of your constitutional rights worth? Many people in this country have given their life for their constitutional rights. The gun owners and the citizens that support the Constitution, the Second Amendment rights, have a tremendous debt of thanks for the efforts of Mr. Button. And passing this resolution will show that debt of gratitude to them.
I'd like to have a question addressed to the county attorney. In regard to the amendment that we just put in there, upon approval of Board of Legislators, would we not be able to make a determination of proper procedure once you come back to us as to the going the amicus route or the more involved one? So we'd be awaiting for more information from you in regards to making that determination.
Based on this resolution, assuming that it passes, my intention would be to secure an outline of our options. Identify for you what those options are for most likely would discuss because it's anticipated proposed litigation, something in executive before bringing something more formal out to public floor. Reason being is that if you take a look at county law section 500 and county law section 501, there are specific limitations associated with county attorney's ability to initiate certain actions unless specifically delegated by state authority. I have to come in and ask the board for permission. It's wise of me as county attorney to make sure that permission is in writing and publicly discussed so that in the future, nobody can allege in some secret discussion that I did not have permission to do what the board is authorized to do. So for that very reason, as I indicated, I would come back to the board and just speak to the board about whatever the options are and get permission.
Mr. Denise,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't take very long. I did I looked at a list on the internet. And looked at the 50 states and looked at gun violence. Number one being the highest incidence of gun violence, number 50 being the lowest incidence of violence. It's just curious. You were New York State laws, 47. Your state is 47 out of 50 states. And we continue to pass this misguided legislation. You know, I got to think if this were if this Concealed Carry Improvement Act and brought into the court as a lawsuit, it would be dismissed as being arbitrarily capricious. You know, it's just they're trying to fix the problem that doesn't exist. And, it's, you know, now we can't. It's like passing the law. It's like passing the Care Act. We need to get it passed so that then we can find out what's in it. Oh, it's the same thing. Now we can't have reenactors. I'm not sure if we can carry guns together. There's so many unknowns, so it's not all. And I think we need to do everything we can to do this.
thank you, Mr. Denise. Mr. Burke.
Just to make it clear, most of this discussion is on the wording of the resolution, not on the intent. And I, for one, very supportive of the resolution in opposing the state with their heavy regulations. But I do think it's important to make sure that the wording that we have, what we vote on, is accurate. Joe corrected it, I'm comfortable. But it sounds like we're still debating whether or not this deserves our attention or doesn't. I think you've got the issue has our attention. I think you'll find that would be well supported.
Start.
Question.
Second.
Second, you call the question?
Yes, sir.
All in favor, okay, second the question. Mr. Lightfoot, you call the second the question?
Yes, sir.
Seconded it?
I did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Question for the secretary, call. All in favor of the resolution, say aye. Anyone opposed?
I am,
One opposition?
yes.
One? Thank you, well noted. Okay, next on the agenda. On the administrative. Group.
First, wanted to extend my congratulations to the sheriff, to the staff. Not sure that you all know, but it is quite an honor to have Peter Kehoe join us and in attendance tonight. But also wanted just to mention a little gotcha we had, giving the sheriff that original oath of office. He was not accepted. So happy to share. That's evidence that our new historian has the opportunity to take a look at these things, work in concert with our county clerk, and make these things a reality. Super proud. I'm happy to have our sheriff and his staff continuing with the accreditation effort. Also wanted to extend my gratitude for the dedication today. I appreciate that you all are here in person. We actually had a picture at the bench with everyone, so I think you'll see that picture out in the lobby there to include the picture of all legislators.
But I think it meant a lot to Dorothy and certainly to her family, but also to county staff, to see someone who's so influential and so important to the members in the right way. She probably would still be living that, but certainly happy to have you all here for that. Wanted to report out to you, I have 4 transfer funds. Bear with me, there are 2, one for 32 cents and one for 41 cents. That I have to share with you with regards to Sheriff's Office and Emergency Services. This is to close out some grants. We apportion in the accounts, you may recall, very specifically to grant accounts that don't allow the general fund to pull to it. So when we do that, I report to you. The next one is for the Board of Legislators Office, specific to purchasing with the additional advertising. We needed to move $100 associated with the closeout for that. And then we also needed to move $3,528 to include, we have, as many of you have seen, changed out the frames that we're using for our certificates from the glass and the plastic to a more appropriate, seemingly we took it from the Sheriff's Office, a very nice but not glass-based frame. So that was not budgeted, so we moved some funds for that. Also ended up that we were able to send Dylan to our Tyler Munis training, and I attended the Government Finance Officers Association training. So those now are covered with those transfers. Wanted to mention to you, the resolution passed this evening. That will set into motion the public hearing and local law adoption to take place at our October 3rd meeting. So far, today is the end of the current state of emergency declaration by the state. And the indications that we have are that it will not be extended. That may change, but while we'll continue to watch that, that will mean from tomorrow, September 13th, until October 4th, which would be the day that we would file with the Secretary of State the local law, should the board adopt it and the public hearing take place, that we can return to alternative forms of attendance. We'll share that with our advisory boards, committees, and councils, but so that you know that is the standard. If in fact we find out that the state of emergency is extended, we'll return to the same format we've had for a very long time now. Wanted to make you aware that All Paid was a resolution you adopted last month. It's going to allow for electronic sign up and payment for our civil service exams. Should be live before October 1st. We're working through the final transactions to make sure it happens correctly, but that's going to be a step forward for exams, both submission and being able to pay for those exams online. We do have our RFP out on the street for agenda management software. We've talked a little bit about the improvement that will provide for us. We'll see when that's returned, but also for some equipment. We have dated and aged iPads that legislators use for meeting attendance. We're going to look to bring in some technology that you can sample before and after the meeting so that you can see if there's some technology that would work better for you. So that we can start 2023 with technology that hopefully is much easier both on the management of software in Google Drive, something that works a little more friendly, as well as equipment that is reliable. So stay tuned for more about that when we see the responses. You may have traveled through my office coming in this evening, but if not, I invite you to on the way out. I will be, for the foreseeable future, displaying artwork on the wall on the backside of this room, showcased and painted by our social services staff. So they had an art contest over the last roughly 18 months. Staff could volunteer to receive a 5-foot canvas with some grant funds they received. And once they compiled the results, they have now assigned the places, so to speak. But there's beautiful artwork in the Department of Social Services. And so each month I'm going to change out and display one of their beautiful either portraits or artwork of some sort. And I have indicated in our artist this month is Brandon Showed. And I'll continue to provide years of service and what they do for us in social services. So I'm very excited to share with their permission the artwork that they've commenced for the department. So stop on by on the way out. We are furiously working to put together the 2023 tentative budget, as well as that includes the 2022 projections. Just from the number of budget modifications you looked at this evening, I don't think we've ever had an entire page of the original agenda without roll call votes. So we're watching that. We certainly will keep you apprised as the third quarter comes to a close, but so that we can better prepare both for 23 with respect to the changing costs that we're all feeling. We certainly are seeing that in our acquisitions. County government. Wanted to seek some clarification from you. You have provided through the vacancy process the ability for me to fill positions that have not been filled in excess of a year.
Now, that was based on the idea that process for vacancies both takes the month to prepare, the month to present, and the board meeting to adopt. And you saw last time at finance, I presented, we're roughly running about a 6-week day, 6 weeks vacancy associated with filling those positions. So the board took a look at that. We've had several conversations throughout COVID, but then continuing past COVID, talking about the ability within that year to go ahead and refill that position without coming through the vacancy process. Positions filled, it's budgeted. So we've done that several times. So what we're running into now with the delays associated with items outside of employees' control, exams not being held, results not being returned. We have some employees potentially who either resign or depart outside that year. So I was looking for guidance if in fact there isn't permanency in a position, if the board has an objection to those positions taking a similar process and being able to be refilled upon vacancy. Questions?
Questions approved.
I have a couple other items, but I wanted just to get some guidance on that.
Questions,
So with them not being filled, you're saying these individuals are in these positions, but this has not being covered. It's really classified.
No, so let's say the board authorizes a position to be filled. Person occupies a position, we follow the civil service process, we hire someone, and traditionally, process I'm speaking to, they're here for 6 or 8 months, and either they depart or we separate for other reasons. That position's vacant, or last time it was approved was less than 1 year ago. Board said, go ahead and refill that position because the person isn't permanent. So they're full-time, they just don't have permanent rights to that position. So the thought is, we're now in a situation post-COVID where exams still aren't scheduled. We're months and months go by before we see results of civil service. I'm asking outside of that time period. So now let's say board authorized a position through vacancy and through the board. And we've gone past that 1 year. That was my benchmark. Anything outside a year, you got to come back to the board. Now we're looking at situations where that year passes, but there's no change because of civil service. So not because a manager isn't appointing them, not because they've done something wrong, but because of civil service or because of the results coming back so that we know if they're eligible for the position or not. So then the position becomes vacant. So what I'm asking, if there's not permanency in a position, does the board consider that required to go back to vacancy, or can I go ahead with the same process and fill the position?
Is an evaluation being made with that being absent or vacant for so long, whether that's actually needed or not?
The filling the position itself?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. There any objections to that? And I can report to you just like I do when I do the vacancy summary, every operations committee, and let you know if that's happened. We just have a couple for reasons of civil service that people have departed, not been fired, but we'd like to refill those positions. Okay. I would like to ask that our treasurer and our superintendent of highways be allowed to stay for executive session, if that's possible, when we get to that part. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any old business come forward? Ms. Haggard?
Thank you. I have a question about old business that I'm confused about, and it has to do, I heard from a constituent that at one point we were interested in, somebody had brought to the board an interest in hiring a consultant to study the problems with EMS, and that we had considered it and voted that down. And I would like some clarification from anyone who was either here when that happened, or if that happened while I was here and not. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So the latter part of 2021, there were many conversations, and they continue today, in the emergency services community that resulted in many of you attending meetings in the districts. And so out of those, information is being compiled to bring back both to the Emergency Services Advisory Board and to this board to explain the feedback that they received. Not sure about the consultant piece, although I think out of this was going to come some changes, and that may be part of the confusion or concern.
Thank you. I'm glad we're still working on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Forsythe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ruth, I got a call last week that the city
Am I correct that the city has paid off their 20-year outstanding debt in full?
City, I can't speak to the exact years, I can get that for you, but they have paid the outstanding remaining balance, yes,
As agreed.
as agreed.
Thank you.
Any other old business? New business? Yes, that is great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the next committee meeting, I'll be introducing a resolution asking the governor for clarification on whether or not this conceal and carry legislation was intended to have any impact on the reenactment events. I've received calls from folks who organized the Madrid Civil War weekends, the folks that do the February War of 1812 event, the folks that do the French and Indian War event during the summer, who've also been in contact with events all across New York State who are concerned about being charged with a felony for participating in historic reenactment events that celebrate our nation's heritage. And this is a tourism issue. You know, this is an issue that a lot of these small not-for-profit groups that are involved with these events, it's important for them to be able to hold these events in order to stay fiscally viable. And they celebrate our history and educate our citizens about what life was like for our ancestors and what they went through to make our country what it is today. And, you know, since, you know, what sets this apart from the concealed carry issue is there's no bullets. You know, we're talking about black powder. We're talking about, they make a boom. You know, it's a musket that's unloaded that is firing black powder, or in the case of Civil War events, a percussion cap. And I don't think anyone intended to ban historic reenactment events at Saratoga, at Fort Stanwix, at Plattsburgh, at, you know, historic locations across our great state. And I'm hoping that we can appeal to the governor to clarify and make known to these people that no, they do not have to cancel their events, that these events can continue. And meanwhile, the constitutional challenges and everything else, you know, will go on as we all know it will. But in the meantime, there's no reason for us to end our celebrations of our heritage and our culture. So I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention that I will be drafting a resolution and bringing that forward.
Perhaps we ought to have a similar resolution, but people, folks in here on that part.
I think that should also, I think these should be separate resolutions so that, you know, these are, you know, dealt with, and each of them's, you know, their importance is made known.
Thank you. Great.
It's really not new business, but I actually want to compliment the city mayor, Mike Skelly, and the city manager, Steve Jelly, for paying off the county for the money that was due. And I want the citizens of the city of Auburn to know that this debt, most of it was not theirs, and most of this debt had occurred under the mayor, Bill Nelson, and Wayne Ashley for 20 years. Started in 2003. So kudos to the city for following through and paying the county the money that was due. I give them full credit.
Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to publicly recognize the falling of a recent lifelong volunteer fireman named Frank Burton, 73 years old. Frank lived right next door to me, and the fire station in Helena is also right next door to both of us. A lot of folks who may not know that Frank's family donated that land actually years ago to have that fire hall there, which certainly exemplifies the commitment that they had for volunteer firemen. It was I think he was county car number 10 for a number of years as well. And all too many mornings at 3 or 4, 20 below zero, I hear trucks start up and it was Frank going out to save something. So just thanks to Frank for that service.
Thank you. Any other business? Okay, let's go on to committee reports. The committee reports. No committee reports. We have need to go into executive session.
So we do for litigation, for negotiations, for personnel, for the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. and appointment.
Motion for executive session by Smithers, second by Lightfoot.